we go. Now we're
All
in.
right.
What's going on, man? Happy Saturday. Good to see you, Chase. How are things going?
Great to see you as well, Aaron. How are you doing?
Oh man, I'm excited because today we can talk about one of my favorite franchises. Um, I know you did some homework for this because you're like, yeah, Godzilla's cool. I like some Godzilla, but I don't. What's good Godzilla? And I was like, let me send you a list of 50 films. This is one of my favorites. This morning we went to the farmer's market as we do on Saturdays. And I was wearing my Godzilla shirt and a Godzilla jacket. And this guy came up to me and was just like, I love your jacket. I love Godzilla. And he knew his stuff. And it's just so fun to see how this giant monster has crossed generations and barriers and really it's just a pop culture icon. I love it. Did you have fun watching these?
Oh yeah, I had a blast. If you get me to sit down and just watch men in rubber suits, Godzilla rubber suits, and monster rubber suits just punch the hell out of each other for an hour, 20 minutes, I'm gonna have a great time. I'm gonna have an excellent time.
I always say like the smash is what I'm here for. Like I love the rubber suits, I love the miniature cities, I love the craft work that goes into it. Godzilla is just amazing for all that. And I want to start with this sentiment. And it's how films are kind of a timeless medium. And a lot of times that makes a film removed from where it was when it was created and you lose some of that impact that it had on society and some of the influences that are taken from society. We lose some of that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's an interesting thing. So I want to paint a picture. I want to take us all the way back to uh, uh, 1945. Okay, so March 9th, 1945, World War II is raging on. This is March 9th, middle of the night. 279 B-29 Superfortress heavy bombers firebomb Tokyo with napalm, killing 100,000 civilians. It is so destructive and terrifying. It's considered one of the most heinous and destructive acts of war of all time. And that's before August 6th and August 9th, when America drops 2 nuclear bombs on 2 cities in Japan. So Japan is reeling from this. The people are reeling from this. They have seen nothing but destruction for months at this point. August 15th is called the Jewel Voice Broadcast, and Emperor Hirohito, also known as the Showa Emperor, that will come back later, speaks to the Japanese people. This is the first time many civilians have heard the Emperor's voice, and at this time in history, they consider him a living god. So think about that. You have just seen the most destruction that your country has ever seen in its history. You're hearing the voice of what you've been told is a god, and he's saying, we're going to accept the terms of the outside forces. And they're like, wait, are we surrendering? Did we just lose the war? What are you saying? He's not very clear. It's super vague. So then September 2nd, Japan officially surrenders. World War II is over in the Pacific. VJ Day is what they call that. January 1st, 1946, later that year, it's a New Year's address to the people, and Emperor Hirohito says, actually, I'm not a god. That's crazy to some people. People don't want to hear that shit. Some people are like, well, yeah, duh. I knew that. This is 1946, okay? 1953, a movie comes out called Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. It's got awesome stop motion in it. It is a really cool monster movie. It does really well. And some people from the Toho company are like, hey, we need to make a giant monster movie. Cool. They got some people thinking about that. March 1st, 1954, we have the Lucky Dragon number 5 incident, Bikini Atoll. Another American nuclear test goes off, and its fallout drifts and infects a Japanese boat. All the men on board get severely sick. This incident then puts the dangers of nuclear activity back in the forefront and back in the minds of many Japanese people. There is a man on a plane whose name I'm not going to attempt to pronounce because I would be very sorry for doing that. He goes, hey, I got an idea for your giant monster movie. Let's go. He comes up with this giant monster that comes and attacks and tries to kidnap women, and this guy named Ishiro Honda goes, "Nah, I'm not doing that. I want a lizard, and I want to put a guy in a suit to do this." And they start working on in August of 1954. They start shooting Big G. They don't have a name for this movie yet. G is for giant, not for Godzilla. The name comes much later, nearly weeks before the movie comes out. Shiro Honda directs it. Suitmation is born. They make this amazing film detailing the horrors of nuclear war. And it comes out in October of 1954, October 27th, 1954. That's 9 years after these bombs have been dropped. People are still alive. This is raw. This is a raw film to make. It is really at the heart of what the Japanese people fear, what the Japanese people had dealt with. And it's that just to think about that, like what people are living through and still surviving. People still have burns from radiation. They're still rebuilding buildings at this point. Japan is still very messed up from the war. And to see that movie come out and it hit hard. It got kind of panned by critics because of its political messaging, but it made a lot of money and it was the highest grossing film that year, won a bunch of awards for Japan, but it doesn't leave Japan. That film doesn't get to America. It doesn't get wide release until 2004. You're like, but wait, what? I know Godzilla came out. That's because in 1956, Godzilla King of Monsters is released. And this is basically the Japanese version, but an American company has recut it with Raymond Burr inserted into it to be like, oh, hey, I'm a reporter in Japan. And they keep cutting to him to put it into context. It removes a lot of the anti-war sort of messaging, instead fills it with sort of dangers of science messaging. That movie comes out, becomes a massive hit. Godzilla King of Monsters is the movie that most people saw until 2004 when that movie was finally released outside of Japan, the original Gojira. But that is the first film. Have you seen the first one? You've seen the
Yep.
Godzilla King of Monsters or Gojira?
I have seen that one and King of Monsters. I probably saw King of Monsters first because, again, I
It's
first
the one
watched
to,
this
yeah.
I watched this in the 90s. I don't think I even saw the original 1954 Japanese one until probably about 2005, 2006. I think it was either Turner Classic Movies or AMC had
Yeah.
showed it, and that was my first experience watching the original. But yeah, it really I feel like this is really groundbreaking because yeah, you get the first time where it's a suit performer.
Yep.
You know, you get a lot of miniature model buildings and the tanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a very powerful message because yeah, this was really Japan still rebuilding itself after World War II. And plus it was also really nuclear war was really at that time, even like just not in America, but worldwide was really a common fear. Cause I mean, you've seen the 1950s little animated things they would show to school, like schools,
Duck
like,
and
oh, in case
cover.
duck and cover, hide under your desk.
Well, remember when we were talking folk horror, how horror movies are always playing on what are the modern fears? What are the fears that people are dealing with right now? And nuclear fear of the 50s, the fear of nuclear war, that was a big part of this. And Godzilla nailed it in a way that was so raw and so real. A lot of the American movies, it creates giant ants, and there's a lot of like
Yeah,
Russian fear involved because you're in the middle of the Cold War at this point. But
the
like
Martians
the
and
Martians, yeah. Japan had a very unique perspective though, because they had experienced that firsthand what that horror is. And Godzilla is such a great representation of that. And Godzilla continues to be a very interesting representation throughout history of what Japan was going through at that time. Sometimes he's this unstoppable force of destruction. Sometimes he's a hero. Sometimes he's a metaphor for other things. It's very fascinating. But he spawned one of the longest running film franchises of all time. I mean, he's fought all these creatures. Bambi went up against him once in an underground film called Godzilla versus Bambi, which we'll talk about in a minute. he Godzilla is it's just one of my favorite franchises to talk about because I just love anytime you get some monsters bouncing around, in rubber suits smashing shit, I am on board. But
Oh
the
yeah,
fact the fact that the first Godzilla has so much messaging behind it makes it a solid movie. And even just last year, we got another iteration where Godzilla meant something, and that was just so awesome. Godzilla -1, just phenomenal to see that.
that is my favorite. That was actually my favorite Godzilla movie of all time. Plus, my favorite movie of last year. It really Godzilla is really a great topic to talk about because you get a little of everything. You get some serious movies with some nice social commentary. Then you get some stuff that's the absurd. You get Godzilla in space, Godzilla being controlled by aliens.
Yes.
Godzilla is the imagination of a little boy who uses to deal with bullying. it
Mm.
it gets wild. It gets really wild. But before we talk about these creatures,
Hmm.
I think for first of all, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, whether
Yeah.
you're watching us on Instagram Live, X, YouTube, or the Prophets Theater at the
Live
Block of Horror.
shout out to
The
everybody in the Prophets Theater. I see voice of Kent, Karen's in here. Heck yeah! Shout out to all you guys.
Yes, everyone who joined us at the Prophets Theater at
Manny.
blockofhorror.com. Got a lot of great people there, but I do want to say for those who are watching on Instagram Live or X or YouTube, if you have access to a laptop or desktop browser, go to blockofhorror.com, go, create your profile,
There it is.
travel to the Prophets Theater, sit with great people that are sitting there right now. And after the show, exclusively at the blockofhorror.com virtual world, Red Tower Entertainment, our great friends at Red Tower Entertainment, are going to be showing us Creature Features, 3 hours of shorts, Creature Feature shorts at the Prophets Theater at the blockofhorror.com virtual world.
Right after the show. Yeah.
Right after the show. So stick around. If you're already in the blockofhorror.com virtual world at the Prophets Theater, stay tuned. If you're not, if you're watching us on one of the other platforms, go to blockofhorror.com. Desktop, laptop browsers, only mobile coming next year. And create your profile, create your avatar. We should have a lot of cool avatars walking around the Block of Horror world. And go to the Prophets Theater and stick around for Red Tower Entertainment's Creature Features.
That is right, man. I'm super excited. I love me some Creature Features. Godzilla being one of the best.
Yes.
It's Godzilla horror.
You know, the thing is, I know you asked, you talked about this last year.
Yeah.
Back when Half Hour Horror was on Twitter Spaces. I would say, and something you said was very wise. Kaiju is kind of a genre of its own.
Mm-hmm.
I would say you get a mixture of creature features, horror, depending on the topic. Of course, when you get the stuff like Invasion of Astro Monster and
yeah, Megalon. Yeah, it gets goofy. It gets
it
straight
gets
goofy.
But yeah, you get some horror in there, some action in there, some disaster flicks in there.
Yeah.
So I would say it has horror elements, but I would agree with you. Kaiju is kind of a genre of its own, and it's just a mixture of all of these together.
So, one of the ways to break down the Godzilla franchise, it's because everybody goes like, where do I start? There's 33 official Godzilla films, and it's broken into 3 eras. You have the Showa era, which is 1954, the original Godzilla, through 1975, and those are all the old school Suitmation ones. They, aside from the first one, they're all kind of cheesy, but they have some fun sci-fi elements. They're super fun, bright colors. Really, I love this era because of its cheesiness and its fun piece of it. And as I had mentioned earlier, talking about the history, it's called the Showa era because they're based on the emperors that were the figurehead in Japan at the time. Hirohito, once he basically said, "I'm not a god," changed his era to be the Showa era. So that's why this group of Godzilla films is called the Showa era, and that they're really fun. They're cheesy, like I said, but they're really good. But it ends with the movie Terror of Mechagodzilla from 1975, which is a really super fun movie. Godzilla, anytime Mechagodzilla shows up, I love me some Mechagodzilla. Here's my Attack Peter Mechagodzilla right here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mechagodzilla is the best. When he first shows up in Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, he looks like Godzilla. He's got like Terminator skin on, so he looks like a normal Godzilla. And Godzilla's kicking his ass, and all of a sudden you see the metal through the body, and he's like, Godzilla's like, what the fudge? And then the skin burns off, and he turns into Mechagodzilla, and you're just like, this is the best. So that's the first era. The second era then comes 1983, 1984, and this is the Heisei era. The Heisei era. And these movies are a little bit darker. They have way cooler special effects. You have basically a
better
retelling
looking suits.
Way better looking suits. By the end of the Showa era, Godzilla is like a cross-eyed Googlebot with goofy fucking Cookie Monster eyes.
The suit is
the best.
The suits are so worn out, especially on Godzilla, because you start to see some wear and tear and rips.
You can see the eye holes where they're torn into the costume, where some guy's inside being like, "Oh, it's me, I'm Godzilla."
Ghidorah really starts to look rough at this point. The Mothra, I would assume that was probably a puppet or animatronic Mothra.
Yeah,
that one's really looking worn. But yeah, when you get to this era, like, yeah, the movies are much darker in tone and theme. You get better looking, so much better looking suits, better looking like the model buildings and vehicles. But then that ends in 1995
with Godzilla versus Destroyer, where Godzilla dies. Holy shit! Everybody's like, "Oh, you killed Godzilla." And they're like, "Yeah, we've made way too many of these movies. Why are we going to make more?" And we'll break down. We'll get into these eras here in a second. But yeah, Godzilla dies in the end of that era, and that's 1995, just in time for America to take a crack at it for the TriStar era, which is everybody's favorite American Godzilla.
Here's the thing. This movie came out when I was 8 years old. Thing is, when you're 8, you love everything. I hated this movie at 8 years old.
You hated the movie, but I was old enough to buy that soundtrack, and that was a just banger, end to end to end. Green Day was like, "Hey, you know our song Basket Case?" And everybody was like, "Yeah, it's a huge hit." They're like, "What if we added Godzilla roars to it?" And we're like, amazing, even better. P. Diddy, before he got into some deep shit, has an awesome crossover with some Led Zeppelin guitarists, and he lets out the banger single "Come With Me," which is just sick. It's got the Kashmir riff on there from Led Zeppelin. Every song on that album is just fire. I love that album so much. But yeah, that movie, I was so excited, and then I'm watching it, I'm just like, this Godzilla's kind of goofy, man. You guys, and like, and that's saying a lot for the goofiness that we have. It has now, to me, settled down a little bit. But Godzilla, that Godzilla has a nickname. Do you know what it is?
Zilla.
Yeah, but he also has he has another nickname, Gino.
Oh, what is it? Gino. Okay.
Godzilla in name only. Godzilla, Gino. And he is called Zilla. That's what most people call him for that and the cartoon series that he's in. But Gino was the name used for the end of the next era, the Millennium era. There's a movie called Godzilla Final Wars, and he kills Gino, which is great.
In record time too.
It's the shortest Godzilla fight of history. Yeah, he just picks him up, throws him into a building, and then just breaths him. 1999, Godzilla 2000 comes out. I love the tradition of Godzilla movies with dates in them being 1 year later than when they came out. Because Godzilla 1984, aka The Return of Godzilla, came out in 1983. Godzilla 2000 comes out in 1999. This is the first movie I saw Godzilla in theater because I was trying to go see The Cell. You know the movie The Cell with Jennifer Lopez.
Right.
And they wouldn't let me because I wasn't 18. And they're like, "Where's your parent?" And I was like, I got here on my own. I should be allowed to see this movie, and they wouldn't let us. So I was like, there's a Godzilla. Let's go see that. And it was awesome. Um, but the Millennium era is very interesting because you get a handful of films that in the Heisei era, none of them are interconnected. None of them are sequels to each other. They all just assume that the first movie happens and then this movie happens. There's no continuity. This is where things start to get weird. Then when you get in the Millennium era, basically the same thing. They're like, well, this movie happened and then maybe one of the others, but then this one. They have no continuity, which is bizarre. Like Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, which is a rad movie, by the way. One of my all-time favorites. It assumes that the original Godzilla happened, then the first Mechagodzilla happened, and then this Mechagodzilla happened. You're just like, wait, what? Do you get to cherry pick like that? And they're like, yeah, we like the Mechagodzilla movies, and we don't think you need any of these other ones. And you're like, okay, fine.
To be fair, the Halloween franchise has been doing that for years. So.
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, more Godzilla, bring it on. There is some really funny, like another one. There's Godzilla, King Ghidorah, Mothra, all out giant monsters attack, which is also known as GMK, giant monsters attack. Giant monsters all out attack. Sorry. Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, giant monsters all out attack. It's a mouthful. It's a great movie, but it's like completely singular on its own as its own film. Godzilla is like the ghost of World War II. And then oh no, I'm frozen.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me still?
Good? Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, well, the video will catch up.
Hold on. Let me check YouTube and ask if you're still good. Hold on.
Hey, the video just came back.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we're good. We're good.
All right. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Yeah, giant monsters all attack. It's Godzilla has white eyes, all white eyes, and the souls of the ghosts of World War II are like infused with him as a guardian spirit, and him and Mothra and Bagaran have to fight King Ghidorah. It's great, but also makes no sense. You're like, yeah, whatever. Giant monster smashing things. I'm on board.
Then immediately after this era, which ends in 2004 with Godzilla: The Final Wars, it goes on a 10-year hiatus. Then we get what probably I would say most American audiences are more familiar with, probably what a lot of younger audiences are familiar with. The ones I'm going to be honest, I'm most familiar with is the Legendary Pictures MonsterVerse movies, which starts in 2014 with aptly titled just Godzilla. You get an all-star cast with this one. You get Aaron Taylor Johnson. Kind of at the beginning of his kind of, now he's kind of an established leading man, but this is really when he was starting to dip his toes into that kind of leading man.
Halfway through this movie, you go, wait, is that kid from Kick-Ass? Boy, he got ripped. He got ripped for this. Like, he put on some gains, man.
No, and it's funny because the last thing I saw him in was in Kick-Ass. He was just kind of skinny looking, awkward kid. And then 4 years later, he's like he got huge. You get a slew of Academy Award winners and nominees like Ken Watanabe, Juliette Binoche, Bryan Cranston, who I think is the highlight of that movie. Sally Hawkins. You get Elizabeth Olsen. And this was kind of really one review I saw for this was America's apology for the 1998 remake.
And they earn it because this movie, while this first one isn't my favorite of the Legendary series, it is solid. They do a good job. It does one huge mistake though, because I was in a movie theater watching this and people started booing, and here's what happened. He loved to hide Godzilla as long as he could. And Godzilla smashes, stomps down. You see the camera raising up his body. Everybody started getting amped up. The whole theater was getting pumped. And all of a sudden it cuts to out of a TV and somebody's watching the destruction. And you stole that moment from us. And I know when he was making that and editing that, he was like, tee hee hee hee. I fooled him on that one. The whole theater started booing. You now have to earn them back. And I think by the end they did, but everybody was like pissed that he stole that moment from them, and he gave it back to him later. You get the roar, you get the monster fight, but like that moment where everybody thought they were going to reveal Godzilla and everybody could cheer, he stole that from him. People were pissed off, and
Yeah,
I
because
was,
you don't get
oh
Godzilla until well into the last half of the film. I will say this is a solid movie. I will agree, not my favorite out of the MonsterVerse films. Then you get, of course, immediately after Kong Skull Island, but we're talking Godzilla, not King Kong.
yeah,
and then and then basically the next few films, I would say, is an apology for keeping us waiting for Godzilla 2014 for so long.
yeah.
Because the next one, how would you describe the MonsterVerse movies, Aaron? You had a great analogy.
What did I say? I
You
forgot my
said
great
it's like
analogy.
a blast of Mountain Dew
A
right in your
blast of Mountain Dew
face.
right to your eyeballs. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Godzilla King of the Monsters in 2019 is one of my like favorite ones because I get Mothra back, I get King Ghidorah back, I got Rodan in here. Like
Yep.
it just that is Monster Smash the way I like it, and that delivered. Godzilla versus Kong, is a lot of fun. Same thing.
Yeah.
I get a poorly designed Mecha Godzilla, but still I get Mecha Godzilla.
I have a question for you about
Yeah,
Godzilla versus Kong.
yeah,
Because to me, this is a very important movie. It's
yeah,
not the greatest movie, but it's a lot of fun. But here's why it's important.
yeah.
Aaron, when this came out, did you go see this in theaters?
I
Or
did
did you watch
not.
it at home or did you watch it at home when it came on HBO Max?
I watched it at home. I wanted to see it in theaters, but I
Okay.
had just had a baby. And so getting to the theater, it's pandemic era too. This is 2021. So people are still like, do I go to a movie theater?
Yeah.
Do I not
Yeah.
go to a movie theater? Shit was still wild right then, man. We didn't have there was no vaccines yet. There was nothing to help prevent the spread of COVID, and everybody was still kind of whacked out from it. And I
Yeah.
had just had a baby, but when it came, I plopped down, and the baby was watching with me. We watched some Godzilla. It was There are some fights in it that are some of the best Godzilla fights we've ever seen. When they're
Oh,
on the
yeah.
boat. So here's the thing: Godzilla versus Kong, the original Godzilla versus Kong that came out in
1962.
1962.
I had the VHS of this as a kid.
Yeah, you did. I
My
love
grandmother
that.
bought I remember my grandmother, my late grandmother would take me to Toys R Us, like at least once a month on Sundays and let me pick out one item. And I remember walking past seeing I swear I was probably like 7 or 8, seeing Godzilla versus King Kong. And
That monkey suit in that one left a lot to
it's
be desired.
goofy. It's goofy, but you know what? I was like 7 or 8. It was awesome. I remember getting home immediately after my grandmother dropped me off for home, just immediately plopping in the VHS and just watching it. Yeah, that one's a lot of fun. But yeah, the King Kong suit is very goofy. And this is where you get kind of Godzilla doing like celebratory dances and clapping like after he wins a fight.
Super cheesy. But if you watch the original one first and then you watch Godzilla versus Kong, the new one in 2021, it is awesome because they literally took some really cool things. There's a whole thing about Godzilla being carried by helicopters in the original, and they brought that back for this one. Godzilla's King Kong being carried by helicopters, Godzilla smashing trees into King Kong's mouth. I watched with my daughter on Sundays. We watched the old Showa era ones, and we were watching Godzilla versus Kong, and he's smashing the tree into his mouth, and Sammy goes, "Eat your broccoli." And he knocks King Kong over, and she's like, "Night, night." I was like, "That's right, that's funny." But the amount of homages in that one are great. It's overstuffed. It's way too long. You know, it forgets what we care about. But
But
Godzilla
it's
versus Kong
fun.
is solid. But then
But here's
Godzilla, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
but here's why I think it's important, because a lot of people I talked to said that this was their first movie back during the pandemic. I actually saw it at home on HBO Max. I didn't go back to the theater again until Black Widow a couple months later.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is like widely credited for being like the first big smash hit since the pandemic era, because this one really brought a lot of people back to theaters because it was just such a spectacle that people were like, you know what? We sat at home for too long. Let's go do it. Let's go see it in theaters. And
Yeah.
this is why I feel like it's a very important film, just because of that, just that it brought people back to the theaters just to see this spectacle.
And it is spectacle. It's a wrestling match in a movie, and its sequel, Godzilla Kong, the new Mountain Dew flavor X Pink Godzilla. Um, I love that one. I wanted to hate that one because that same year we had Godzilla minus one, which is one of the best Godzilla movies ever made. Then you have Godzilla Kong X New Empire, which is one of the goofiest things you've ever seen. And that's saying a lot, but it was
Yeah.
so fun. I could not
It
be mad at it.
it here's what I like to say. I'm a huge professional wrestling fan. This
Yeah.
movie is basically if you get someone who's never watched professional wrestling and say, "Show me what professional wrestling is," you get this movie. You get a lot of goofy fights, you get over the top moments, over the top characters. Um, you're right. A lot I think it did get a lot of flack because it came out, let me see when it came out. March of 2024 when Godzilla minus one had just came out in November the
Yeah.
previous year, and then had just gotten re-released as Godzilla minus one minus color, the black and
Yep.
white version, literally 2 months before this came out. And I think you get a lot of people that compared it unfavorably to Godzilla minus one. For example, like my father, I called it my dad when Godzilla minus one minus color came out. I was like, Dad, this is the greatest Godzilla movie ever made. I
Yeah.
took him to the theater to go see it. He loved it. He was like, this is such a great film. This reminded me of the original Godzilla movie. A couple months later, I called my dad back. I was like, hey, like a new Godzilla movie's coming out, Godzilla and Kong, New Empire. Let's go. He was like, okay, let's go see it. And when he was driving me back to my house to drop me off, the entire time he's like, yeah, he was just comparing it to Godzilla minus one. I was just kind of telling him, like, Dad, like you know, you gotta kind of lead the comparisons there because Godzilla minus one is more of a storytelling element
Yeah.
where it has human emotion, human characters. It really brings back to kind of the destruction of war and the aftermath, people rebuilding themselves after war, where Godzilla and Kong and New Empire is just for like people who just want to sit down for 2 hours and just watch CGI monsters kick the crap out of each
Kept the
other.
crack at each other. Yeah. I mean, King Kong has a freaking metal glove being crazy. I'm
You
down for
get
that.
King Kong gets a toothache and gets a
Yeah.
tooth removal.
Tooth removed. Yeah, you got Baby Kong. I was so worried. Anytime you have baby anything, I'm always like, you better not fuck this up. They did okay.
Yeah.
I loved it. We skipped over a movie that came out in the middle of the legendary era, and that is Japan's answer to the success of America's legendary Godzilla. This is 2016's Shin Godzilla.
Yes.
Now, this
And
movie is very popular.
this one is called, I know I'm going to screw this name up, the Reiwa era.
Yes.
Yes, beginning or
Also,
the
the Shin,
Japan
yeah, the Reiwa era or the Shin era, depending on how
Shin
you could,
era.
if you can pronounce Reiwa properly. It's tough. I am probably I I am in the massive minority. I do not like this movie, and people go, oh, "It's so good," and I'm like, "That's your opinion, man."
Okay. I know, you know what? We're going to have a lot of people upset at both of us.
Yeah,
I tried watching this for the first time last year.
yeah.
After I saw Godzilla minus one, I couldn't get into it. I mean, I might, before people start screaming at us, I might actually tonight sit down and try to rewatch it again to give it another shot. But from what I saw, I couldn't get into it. I
Yeah,
couldn't get into y'all
there,
tripping.
there's my brother. That's my brother watching on YouTube, and he loves this movie. Look, if you like it, great. But this is to me like the evangelionization of Godzilla. I like his design. He's creepy looking. He does some cool stuff, but
Get the
it
kind
is
of red
real.
streaks.
Yeah, he's you see his muscles. He looks really gnarly. He looks kind of like a zombie. But like to me, it's relying on this like bureaucratic comedy where it's like, oh, we're the government. We can't do shit right. And it relies on that too hard. That does not carry me through the movie. I like when Godzilla's doing Godzilla stuff. I like when Godzilla's smashing things, but there's a lot of things that I bump on. We don't have to get into that. Let's get into the ones we like though, because there's so many. As I mentioned, I love the Showa era because it is goofy and cheesy and fun. Um, Godzilla Destroy All Monsters is one of my favorite because you get a ton of monsters fighting. Um, this is one where some space aliens take control over a bunch of giant monsters. They start attacking the planet, and Godzilla basically Earth says, "Can we send a champion to fight?" And they're like, "Sure, do your worst." So they send Godzilla to fight all these monsters on a different planet. They're smashing things. It is a all-out brawl, and it is pretty great, pretty nonstop, good times. Godzilla versus Astro Monster, as you mentioned. The first time we
Where,
see King Ghidorah.
yep, that one is a lot of fun because yeah, you get basically the premise of this is these astronauts discover a new planet, Planet X.
Yep.
They're like, hey, we have this monster that is destroying our planet. Could you help us? So they send Godzilla and Rodan, and they're then, but it's all a ruse. It's a ruse.
It's a
They
trick.
are actually, it's a trick. They
It's a
are
trap.
actually, it's a trap. And they say in return, here's the cure for every disease on Earth. And they're like, okay, we'll take it. But then when they get it, they listen to the tape. You're like, no, you're under our control. And if you don't agree to become a colony of Planet X, we're going to send these monsters and destroy your planet.
It's great. They're like, people don't understand how goofy these plots were. So when they watch, one of the legendary films and like the characters are terrible, you're like, oh man, wait till you see the ones with the space aliens. How about you get to the time the cartoonist tries to save the planet from a theme park building race of aliens? Like,
oh yeah, a group of giant alien cockroaches underneath the amusement park, a monster theme amusement park. Oh my
yes,
god, which one is that one? Which one is that
Godzilla
one
versus
again?
Gigan. It's great. I mean, it's great. It makes no sense, but at the end of the day, you're like, how can I be mad at it? I'm watching giant monsters smash stuff. Godzilla versus Hedorah is one of the trippiest ones ever. It has like animation in it. It has like 1960s psychedelics happening in it. Hedorah is a giant smog monster who's like looks like a melted, like it looks like you took your Barbie, your little sister's Barbie and melted it, and now it's all like, that's what Hedorah looks
Yeah,
like.
yeah. That's the one with
Great.
like the sludge where it also shows people's like faces getting burned and
Yeah.
there's like random psychedelic music numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they think to stop Hedorah, we need to go up to the top of Mount Fuji and have a freak off. So they're like, they go out there and with like have bands and everybody's dancing and jamming out and trying to like love fest Hedorah into submission. Yeah, that doesn't work. Godzilla's got to show up and stop that crap.
Then we get possibly one of my new favorite movies, Godzilla versus Megalon.
Yes. You guys have to look up this poster. The original American poster for this is Godzilla fighting Megalon on the top of the Twin Towers. Holy shit. This movie's so bonkers. It has one of our favorite sidekicks in this one. I love me some Jet Jaguar. Punch, punch, punch. Describe this. Give me a little bit of this. What is how is like watching this? Were you just like, what is going on? What did you think about this one?
I was like, what the hell is going on? So you get this father and son, and like the father's like a scientist or an engineer or something.
A brilliant scientist. Yes.
A smart dude that knows how to build robots named
Yep.
Jet Jaguar, who is obviously a ripoff of Ultraman, which was popular in Japan at that time.
Yeah.
Somehow then this ancient civilization's like, America, or not America, the world has been too polluted with nuclear war. We're gonna send Megalon and Gigan to destroy the planet. And so Godzilla comes, and then Jet Jaguar comes, and it's just the tag team match for the ages. Jet Jaguar can all of a sudden make himself grow to be as big as Godzilla.
He's got giant growing strength. It's great.
It's amazing. And then
there's multiple sets of aliens here. You got the people in Atlantis who have Gigan, who have Megalon, and then people who are trying to steal the plans for Jet Jaguar are a different set of aliens. There's so many, like, you're like, wait, how many different alien races are in this movie? They're like, keep watching, it's going to get crazy, and you're like, I don't get what the. Oh,
Then
it's
you get the
good.
best scene of the movie where Gigan has been defeated. So all that's left is Megalon. Jet Jaguar holds Megalon in place for
Yeah,
Godzilla. And Godzilla turns his body in a laying position, as you can see here, as Aaron's instructing, floats and does a diving drop kick to Megalon.
it is. It's so memeable. It's hysterical. Not only does he do it once, he does it like twice. Then they're
He
like
does it
high
2 times in a
fiving at the
row.
end. Yeah, they're high fiving. Jet Jaguar was supposed to like get spin-offs from this, but everybody was like, boo Jet Jaguar. It took years for people to be like, yeah, Jet Jaguar, bring it back. In Godzilla versus Kong, the new Empire Mountain Dew awesomeness, there are bridges that have graffiti of Jet Jaguar on them, and I was like, yes, it says punch punch and has his face, and I was so excited about that. I love me some Jet Jaguar. Hope we get to see him come back. He came back in one of the later anime movies or series that came out, Godzilla Singular Point, as sort of like a new version of Jet Jaguar, but not the same. I love me some Jet Jaguar though. There's a
I
couple
will
of
say,
sweet. Yeah, go ahead.
I highly recommend everybody who's watching this to watch this movie. If you have HBO Max, or Max, as it's called here in the US, it's on there. Watch it. It's incredible. I was having a blast watching this last night.
It is a cheese fest of the best kind, and that to me is the pinnacle of what that era of Godzilla is. It's cheesy, but you can't be mad at it. It's doesn't make any sense, but you're like, these monsters are smashing things, humans are in trouble, there's car chases, there's aliens. What's there to be mad at?
Then you get Son of Godzilla, which introduces a baby Godzilla. No, I think it's Manila.
Manila.
Manila. Okay.
Yeah, Manila. This is the one my daughter likes. This one's actually like, the movie takes itself very seriously. It's these scientists on an island trying to do some like weather experiments, and they start getting attacked by giant creatures, giant insects, really, giant praying mantises, a giant spider named Kumanga, and then they find this egg, and out of the egg hatches this horrible little creature. That is a baby Godzilla, but it looks like shit.
It looks like there was a sitcom in the 80s, and not, or it might have been 80s, but I know it was in the 90s mostly, called Dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And I'm the baby, gotta love me. That's exactly what it looks like.
Not the
Just
mama.
it just, you spray paint it gray.
It looks like the prototype, like I made it in my garage version of that to me, because he's just like, it is such a bad costume. When he finally like forms, he does look like baby Sinclair. You're right. That's so funny. And it's heartwarming. At first I hated it, but since my daughter likes it, we like watching it. They fight the giant spider and him and Godzilla. But like, when you watch these movies and you think it's a dude in a suit fighting giant puppet spiders, there's 8 people at least for each one of the legs. Somebody's pulling a string from up above and controlling the body. The puppeteering in these is always so impressive to me. When you have King Ghidorah, he's got 3 heads, 2 giant wings, and 2 tails, and they made that thing fly. That must have taken 15 people lifting it into the air, making the wings go, making the double tails go, and making all 3 heads work at the same time. That's insanity. Who wrote that? And then a bunch of puppeteers went, are you kidding me? You want me to do what? With how many heads? 2 tails. Get out of here. And they're like, no, Andy's going to fly. And they're like, no, make it stop. When we get into the next era, the Heisei era, you have some of the best films. They're really great. Return of Godzilla, 1984, Godzilla versus Biollante, where Godzilla fights a giant plant, is freaking awesome. It's action packed. Godzilla looks mean as hell. The giant plant is freaking amazing. The next movie, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, time travel. You're like, wait, what? They're like, Godzilla is a T-Rex that was on an island, and it gets irradiated, and when with our time travel shenanigans turns into Godzilla. And we left these three cute little like Grogu-esque things called Dorats. They got stuck in the time continuum and they turned into King Ghidorah. And you're like, what what what? And they're like, yeah. Forget all those movies that you watched. This is how it happened. And you're like,
But not only do you get King Ghidorah,
yeah.
you get Mecha King Ghidorah with
So awesome.
robotics. He looks amazing in this one.
And
Absolutely incredible.
even with the questionable CGI of that era, it's still pretty dang good. I am on board for this movie. It's 1991 graphics, but like it's amazing because the scope of it is ridiculous. Everything you're doing, you're like, again, mind-blowing plot twists because you're just like, wait, you're telling me Godzilla is a T-Rex that with radiation? And they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. Time travel. And you're like, all right, fine, I'm on board.
Makes
Let's
sense
go.
to me. Then you
Not
get
just
Godzilla.
Alien time travel. I forgot to mention aliens. The movie's just bananas.
Then you get Godzilla versus Mothra, which they solely brought Mothra back because Mothra was very popular at the time for female audiences, which is this is essentially kind of a loose remake of the original Mothra versus Godzilla because you get the little pixie fairies back in this one.
I love the pixie fairies.
Godzilla's back to being an antagonist. You get Batra, who is basically like the dark twin of Mothra, which is awesome.
It's really good. Mothra is really impressive. There's a handful of Mothra movies that came out in the 90s that are great. But this is Godzilla versus Mothra Battle for Earth. Batra's like an evil like moth creature. Godzilla looks mean in this one. I love this era of suit. The posters for this era are out of control. The artist for these is Noriyoshi Orai, and he has some of the best poster art you'll ever see. Just Google him right now and like look at the posters he did for Star Wars. Look at the stuff he did for like Beastmaster, Metal Gear Solid. Like he is one of the best artists of his era. I'm going to post his name out there so people can just copy and paste because he's just one of those names you're like, how do I spell that? And you're like, here you go. So his stuff is so good, and I collect some of his posters. I have Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. This is a sequel to the 1975 Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. But not a sequel to Terror of Mechagodzilla. No, not a sequel to that. We're going to go Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, where we have Mechagodzilla and Rodan fighting. It's freaking great, but just ridiculous. Again, timeline all over the place.
To be fair, I can understand because Terror of Mechagodzilla was kind of what ended the original Showa era.
And it's so bad. Yeah, it's not. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's fun.
I heard it's not good.
It's reusing tons of footage. You're like, if you do a Godzilla marathon of the Showa era, you're going to start to get to a point you're like, wait a second, there's those missiles again. Wait a second, that's the same shot of planes flying by. Wait a second, that's the same building I've seen exploded 3 times. Are they just reusing footage? And Terror Mechagodzilla's like, huh, what? Me? I'm not reusing footage. And you're like, yeah, you are. And they're like, yeah, fine, you got me. I barely made a movie.
Which is very surprising that ended the Showa era and not All Monsters Attack.
Yeah. All Monsters Attack is widely considered one of the worst Godzilla films because it's about a little boy who dreams that he's friends with baby Godzilla and keeps dreaming that he's going to Monster Island to learn how to stand up for himself against bullies. The movie is also highly critical. Yeah, go ahead.
Then it turns into like a Home Alone kind of style of movie where it's like him outsmarting kidnappers.
The other big criticism is the kid's length of his shorts. They are uncomfortable. Like this kid just has way too short a short the entire movie. Just makes it a weird like you're just kind of like, can we see some more Godzilla smashing and not follow this kid around? It's just weird. What a weird movie.
Put some damn pants on this kid.
Yeah. Can you get some long pants? And they're like, nah, but we'll give you some Hedora. And you're like, okay, I'll take some Hedora. That's okay. They bounce back. I mean, All Monsters Attack comes out before Gigan, before Megalon, but yeah, that could have killed the franchise easy. That was pretty bad. Um, then we get back to the 1994. We got Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, which again we have Manila in it. Space Godzilla is the G cells. The cells of Godzilla got shot into space and mutated into the space version of him. He comes down, kicks some ass. Not my favorite, but it's fun. And then they're like, you know
I'm
what? We've had enough Godzilla.
I'm
We need to
pretty
kill him
sure I'm pretty sure I had an action figure of Space Godzilla.
with the
Like I
giant
had
shoulder pad
yeah,
diamonds.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I'm
He's
pretty sure I had an action figure as a kid.
he's pretty great. The design wise, he's pretty good. That movie takes forever to get to the action, though. Um, but we end with Godzilla versus Destroyer, 1995, which is one of the best ever. Godzilla is overloading with radiation because of the extra radiation that Rodan gave him in Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, and he is burning up from the inside. He's red. He's glowing from the inside, and he's getting bigger, and he's starting to smash shit up. Destroyer shows up. He's this creature that can mutate into all these other different versions of himself, all of them freaking cool. And they have this giant bombastic battle, and it is one of the greatest battles of all time. And Godzilla at the end self-destructs, and everybody's like, boo-hoo-hoo, bad, sad to see it go. And that was what they thought was going to be the end of Godzilla. And you're like, nah, man, this is a cash cow. You got to make more of this shit.
Oh yeah.
And especially after America did that trashy version from the 90s, that the Matthew Broderick one that people shat all over, they're like, okay, we can't let that be the taste that we leave in everybody's mouth. Godzilla 2000 comes out, and that era, again, none of it really fits together except for Godzilla against Mechagodzilla and Godzilla Tokyo SOS, which are the Mechagodzilla saga, which is really fun. But Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, they have the original bones of Godzilla from the first film, and they're like, we're going to build a mech suit around it to fight off um, this new Godzilla that showed up. And so that's what they build Mechagodzilla, and it becomes sentient, self-aware, and comes to life and starts fucking shit up. And it's great for that. And it is, for me, one of the most action-packed Godzilla movies because Godzilla shows up right away. Mechagodzilla is awesome in all his suit motion animatronic stuff is great. In the next one, Godzilla Tokyo SOS, again, more awesome Godzilla smashing moments. You get the G-Force, which are these like Godzilla, the people who ride around in Mechagodzilla and their other little spaceships. It's fantastic. So fun.
See, I am really not familiar with the Millennium era. The only one I have seen out of that was Godzilla 2000 because I remember they made especially here in the US, they made
Yeah.
a huge deal out of that one. Like I
Oh, yeah.
remember it had the trailer with the Rob Zombie song in the background, and I remember going to rent this and watching it. And yeah, this one is a lot of fun. I have not seen it since, but I do remember enjoying it.
2004 Godzilla Final Wars, again, another last Godzilla movie directed by Ryuhei Kitamura. He also directed one of my favorite film, Versus. Godzilla Final Wars has the most battles in any Godzilla movie. They were like, we're going to do the best of the best. He's going to fight a new Gigan. He's going to fight a Mechagodzilla. He's going to fight Kumanga. He's going to fight Gino, the American Godzilla. The aliens from the past, we've seen these aliens before. They show up and they bring a bunch of monsters, and Godzilla has to kick their ass. It is really fun. It's full of fights. When we're not watching Godzilla fight, we're watching the people fight each other. They're doing some kung fu ass kicking. It is super fun, just a nonstop crowd pleaser of a movie. Godzilla has the meanest, biggest spikes on his back. That's always how, like, one of my metrics for what makes Godzilla awesome is like, how mean are his spikes? And that era of Godzilla in the Millennium were just like awesome. It's super good, and it's worth watching. That's a great, like, if you've never seen a Godzilla before, Godzilla Final Wars, even though it's like the end of Godzilla, it's just fun. It's exactly what you want from a movie of this caliber, and they're just a good time all around. I love it. I want to talk about the Smash score real quick. Can I
The
tell you about
Smash
this?
score.
So
No, I
this
want to
is
hear
this
about
is
this.
this is a project I've been working on, and it's where I sit and I watch Godzilla movies, and I have my phone's timer going. And basically, if something awesome is happening on screen, damage, Godzilla fighting, big smashing, buildings exploding, people running, I run that timer. If it's people talking, not in danger, moving plot, figuring out if their cartoons are good or not, whatever, I turn that thing off. And by the end, I take the movie's length minus the credits, basically when the credits start to roll, and I divide that into the amount of time that smashing was happened, and that gives me a number, and that number is the movie's smash score, and that's telling me how much action is in a Godzilla movie. It's very loose and fast, but it's very fun to do because I like to know, like in Godzilla versus Destroyer, 43 minutes out of 100 minutes are smashing, and Godzilla versus Destroyer has a smash score of 43.
Now,
um
what has the lowest Smash score?
Now, I haven't gotten through all of them, but Godzilla versus Kong, which is a movie that has a lot of smashing, 30 minutes of straight smashing, but the movie's 113 minutes long. So it only gets a score of 26. Its ratio isn't very big, even though it has some of the best fights in the whole thing. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2 has one of the highest scores because it's 42 minutes out of 105, giving it a score of 40, which is great. Godzilla versus Space Godzilla has a pretty low one of only 29 because Godzilla doesn't even show up for almost 45 minutes, which is always a bummer. Return of Godzilla, Godzilla 1984, only has a 22 because 20 minutes of smashing versus a 91-minute film.
That one I noticed was very slow moving.
But a pretty good movie. Like it doesn't
Oh
make it
yeah,
a bad movie.
solid movie.
But if all I want to watch is people smashing and destroying shit, then that's kind of what I'm building this metric for. And as I work my way through the series again and again and again, I'm going to keep refining that smash score. But like, maybe one day we'll put it into a website or put it on a book or something. But like that is to me like the metric. And I have an equation because there's a moment in Godzilla 2014 where Kick-Ass, whatever his name is on a train with a nuclear missile, and they're transporting it to fight Godzilla. And they go, "Are we worried?" And they're like, "Nah, Godzilla's over 1,000 miles from here." And I go, "Then why do I care?" Your proximity to the danger of Godzilla is a direct correlation for how much I care about your character and what's happening in the movie. If you're not in danger, then I don't care. You need to get back in there and keep fighting Godzilla. Whenever there's characters like, and Shin Godzilla is one of the worst for this because Godzilla literally takes a nap in the middle of the movie. He goes dormant, and they're like, he's in the background sleeping, and everybody's talking, and I'm like, I'm so mad at you right now. Like do something, please do something. Like why like in most movies Godzilla, when he takes a nap, has the decency to crawl back into the ocean, and there's still the element of danger where you're like, uh-oh, he might come back at any moment. But like if you have eliminated the danger and you're just progressing the plot or telling me about your plans for your like military advancement, I am mad at you. And that's why I started doing the smash score, because I want to like see how long a movie, what are the good ratios that make a Godzilla movie like fun to watch for me.
Now, I know with Godzilla and Kong, New Empire, that is one where he takes a nap in the middle of a
Yeah,
city where he takes a nap in the
in the
Roman
Coliseum.
Coliseum.
It's kind of a joke that Godzilla, like, he gets tired. He's a big boy. He's got to get his rest in. But that movie made up for it with a lot of fun, smashy. And then we got a TV show out of it, the Monarch series, which is pretty fun. I watched that one. I think my only complaint about it is like I don't think it knew why it was making a TV show. They were like, "Oh man, we got to keep people stoked about it." What was the point of it? I don't know, but it had some cool monster stuff in it, and it kept the characters doing cool things. And it's sort of like, every episode had some fun elements that kept us in the MonsterVerse. And I think that's kind of what they're trying to do, is just keep people in that headspace. And they got a couple shots of Godzilla in there that were impressive, but at the end of the day, it's like it's hard to do Godzilla on a budget. I can only
Right,
imagine.
right. Now, I have not seen the Monarch series because it's on Apple TV Plus, which I have not subscribed to, but I might have to just to watch this. But yeah, it has Kurt Russell, one of
Yeah,
my favorite actors,
John
and then
Goodman's in it a little bit.
oh,
Yeah.
reprising his role from Kong Skull Island.
Yeah. He's in it. A cameo. He's not in it all the time, but he's Kurt Russell plays him in different versions of himself.
Oh, nice. And then I think it's his son Wyatt plays the young version of himself, I believe.
Yep. It's pretty cool. They do a good job with it, and I love seeing the juxtaposition between them. Um, Apologies to people who are on Instagram. It looks like they got booted.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
Thanks. Whichever giant conglomerate owns you. Thanks, Facebook.
Meta.
Yeah. Oh boy. Thanks, Meta. Anyway, I mean, we've been talking about this for an hour. I could talk for hours and hours.
Oh yeah. Now I know they just recently announced a new movie, a follow-up to Godzilla Minus One, which
Yes,
I'm excited for. I know
I'm
you're excited for.
very excited for it.
Same director as Godzilla Minus One, which
Takashi Yamazaki, who crushed it. They asked him if he could redo a monster, which one would he do? And he said Hedorah. If we get like his version of what Hedorah would be, that could be so cool. I don't know what they're gonna do, but like here's a crucial moment when you're doing Godzilla multiple times has done a retelling. Godzilla 2014, Godzilla 1984, the original Godzilla, Godzilla Minus One. Those are all basically remakes of that 1954 film. They're retelling the
right.
origin story. Your second film is super important because this is when you introduce another monster for him to fight. This is when you figure out what your Godzilla's tone is going to be. So this second film is so crucial. like I do not envy the weight that is on this man's shoulder as he tries to develop this next movie. But if he does a smash him up with Godzilla fighting some more monsters, I would love to see it. But Godzilla Minus One really wasn't that tone to begin with. Neither was the original Godzilla.
Mm-mm.
So it'll be very interesting to see where he goes with it. And I have high hopes because I think it's in good hands. I think he's a smart director, a great visual effects supervisor. So I think he has the opportunity to do something really fucking cool.
I think Godzilla Minus One set the standard for future Godzilla movies going forward. Because yeah, we do want to see the monster smashing. We want to see Godzilla blowing, setting stuff on fire, destroying cities. But that one had such a strong human element to it because, the characters there, they weren't just filler, just like, oh, we need some kind of human characters. They had a purpose. They, were the most important part of the story. I would say especially the main pilot, I think he was more important than Godzilla because
100%.
he was young man suffering from PTSD, coming back from the war. He feels like he let his country down, his people down, and he sees getting rid of Godzilla as a way to make himself a hero, and that could be his legacy. And I would love to see them bring him back. Like, would you want to see them bring him back, or you want Godzilla have a new adversary?
Oh, that's tough. That's really tough because I think he told his story, and if you extend his story, are you going to spread him thin? Like
Right,
what
right.
made that character good was so concise, but his decision to take care of that little girl is super important.
Right.
I was so like that movie had me yelling at him like when he rejected being her father the first time, and you're like, you idiot. Like, oh my God, there's so many human moments that are so good and so important and what he wants to do to create that family. And it's not the family he chose. It's not the family he chose. It's the family that was sort of fell
Given
into
to
his
him.
lap. And then he had to like accept that. And Godzilla is so cool in this. It'll be interesting to see how you adapt that into the next one. It's nice to have familiar characters. I will say that.
Right.
So like to see if there's more there. But you got to be careful because I don't want them to, because like you already did the PTSD thing. If that is his one note,
Right.
make sure you evolve that character to be smarter than just that one thing.
Right.
This
And, you
movie
know,
was so brilliant with how it addressed the kind of the old way of thinking from the first Japanese film. And it had a moment where he goes, "Don't do it for the country. Don't sacrifice yourself for the country that didn't care about your sacrifice. Do it for your neighbors. Do it for the people who do matter. Because if you're doing it for country, you're doing it for the wrong reason. If you're doing it for
right.
your family, if you're doing it for your neighbors, if you're doing it for your community, that is the person that you need to sacrifice for." And I thought that was such a brilliant and like evolved and progressive message coming out of a Japanese monster movie. I
That
like
was
that.
like, it took me by surprise when I saw this in theaters because here I was expecting a fun, mindless Godzilla movie, and here I am halfway through the movie getting teared up. Like,
Yeah. Oh man. And like, yeah, at the end, I'm like it gets you, man. That's a heartstring
oh
puller
God,
movie, and it is near perfect for that. I put it up as the best Godzilla film. I think it surpassed the original, not in importance. Again, that original is a blueprint and a seminal film. But if I just want to go by story, like when I rank my films, Godzilla minus one is number one, and then the original is number two. And a lot of people are like blasphemous. I'm like, it can't stay on the pedestal forever. Like that like if you're going to be a movie critic and you're going to rank films, the original can't be on a pedestal just because it's the original. There has to be
A-
something that can surpass it. And I don't think a movie
absolutely,
had done that until then, but minus one I thought had a more important message and a more updated message than the original did. And I said, that's how you do that. That's the only way you can break that streak of being the GOAT, is to be smarter about your message and be more timely with your message. And I thought that was
absolutely.
so cool. Very exciting stuff.
And I think that comes out in 2026 or 2027 is when we get the new one.
Ooh, I don't know, but I'll be watching with excited eyes. I cannot wait. I'll be in theaters day one for that.
Oh, me too.
But we gotta say after this, what you guys doing? Are you sticking around for some creature features? We got 3 hours of short films in the Prophets Theater today for the half hour horror, presented to you by Red Tower Entertainment. Appreciate them for throwing on that programming. And we got to give away some blood coin, man.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Last week, when we talked about The Fly, it was cheeseburgers. This
Cheeseburger.
year, it's not cheeseburgers. It is Godzilla.
Godzilla.
It's that simple. I mean, what else could it be? Guys, let us know. Hit us up. Block of Horror on social media. All things social media. Block of Horror, and in the Discord. Talk to us about Godzilla, man. Keep that conversation going. We love rubber suit movies. I cannot recommend the 1990 Heisei era Gamera films enough. These are, if you like smash 'em up Godzilla movies and you're like, what else is there? Gamera came out with 4 films that are phenomenal because they stood on the shoulders of the technology that Godzilla did and did it like up that ante. And they are so much fun. They have really high smash scores. Gamera is a flying turtle who shoots rockets out of his butt and like can spin in circles and fly through space. Yeah, it makes no sense, but they're freaking good. He had a whole slew of films in the Showa era that are really cheesy. Like if you think Godzilla's cheesy, Gamera is even cheesier. But when he came back in the Heisei era, he knocked it out of the park. And there's some really good Gamera films. Gamera Legion is phenomenal. They're bloody. Gamera versus ISIS, like he gets his hand cut off. The guts are falling out of creatures. It is insane, and the model work in it is phenomenal. And then there's Gamera the Brave, which is a reboot of Gamera that's more geared towards children, but is like really touching and really well done. Gamera is like super cute in that one too. So when he's in danger, you're like, oh no, little baby Gamera.
I'm gonna have to check these out now. I'm looking them up right now.
I bought the box set when it came out, the Arrow Video box set, and loved it so much that I sent it to my buddy Matt. I was like, oh, you gotta watch this. They are so good. So fun. So yeah, that's our Godzilla episode, guys.
Yes.
So amazing that we made through the amount of movies that there are.
70 years. 70 years of Godzilla, and we were able to
7
knock it out
years.
in a little bit over an hour.
I love it. So yeah, plugs your social.
Yes. You can all follow me at Blue Sky, Instagram, Letterbox, and X at Oh Hey It's Chase. And of course, go to blockofhorror.com. If you got access to desktop, laptop browsers, sign up, create your avatar, make a cool avatar, and go to the Prophets Theater. And yeah, sit down and watch Red Tower Entertainment presents Creature Features in 20 minutes. Go
Yeah,
do that, guys.
and you can follow me. I'm on all the stuff with my other show: Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, all that stuff. Blue Sky at Launchpad Pod. Special event coming up December 1st. We're doing Block Friday. Yeah, this is fun. We have a lot of really cool events because next week, Chase and I are going to be trading in our monster shirts for tuxes. I don't think we're actually going to be wearing tuxes, but we're going to be presenting the Blocktoberfest Awards. We have the Audience Award, we have the Mind Brain Bender Awards. We're going to be handing out those awards during our half hour horror. And we have a special director guest coming on. The winner of the Audience Award will be joining us at the end of the show to talk about his award-winning short that you guys voted on. Thanks to everybody who tuned in and voted. We're going to be doing a rebroadcast of Blocktoberfest. And then Chase and I are going to be handing out those awards, which is really exciting. So pretty fun. And we'll be talking about Thanksgiving horror. So, we got some good ones there. And one of my favorite Thanksgiving horror movies will be screened on December 1st in the Prophets Theater. That's Blood Rage. And the Launchpad podcast is going to be presenting that. Me and Matt going to give a little intro. We're going to watch the movie, and then we're going to talk about it. Be a couple of idiots for an hour, like we do. So that's going to be really fun.
I watched that earlier this week.
What'd you think?
Everyone watching. Oh my God, it's so much fun. It is so funny. It's not cranberry sauce.
That's not cranberry sauce. Yeah, that's the best line in that movie. Yeah, you guys are gonna go nuts for it. So yeah, next week is a big weekend for Block of Horror with Block Friday. Half Hour of Horror will be an award show and talking about our favorite Thanksgiving horror films, and then the screening of Blood Rage at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern in the Prophets Theater. So guys, keep posted there for all things, and of course on our Discord, all things Block of Horror. Till next time, guys. That was fun.
Thank you, guys.